Who wrote the Bible? The story behind the sacred text. The Bible. One of the most widely read and influential books of all time. But who wrote it? How did it come about? And why does its story continue to fascinate the world to this day? In this video, we will explore the origins of the Bible and the mysteries behind its authors. The Bible was not written by a single person. It is a collection of books, which over the centuries, were written by different authors, in different places and times. The Bible and its origins. The Bible is a collection of sacred texts that are mainly divided into two groups, the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Old Testament is the basis of the Jewish and Christian traditions, and the New Testament tells the story of Jesus Christ and the early years of Christianity. These texts were written over more than 1,000 years, in different languages, including Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. But how did these texts reach us? To understand this, we need to go back in time. The Old Testament. The Old Testament begins with the earliest accounts of the creation of the world, as described in the book of Genesis. The authorship of this and other books attributed to patriarchs such as Moses has been the subject of debate for centuries. Although Moses is traditionally considered the author of the first 5 books of the Bible, known as the Pentateuch, many scholars believe that these texts were transmitted orally and were only recorded much later by different authors. The Pentateuch and other books of the Old Testament passed through various hands over the centuries. Among the best-known authors are the prophets, such as Isaiah and Jeremiah, whose words and visions were recorded by disciples or followers. Many books of the Old Testament were written at different times, reflecting the cultural and religious changes of the people of Israel. This brings us to an important fact. The Bible is not a single book, but a collection of texts from different times and contexts. The diversity of authors of the Old Testament. Within the Old Testament, we find a diversity of authors and literary styles. Some books are historical, such as Joshua and Kings, which narrate the history of Israel. Others are poetic, such as the Psalms and Songs. Priests and scribes played a crucial role in the preservation and transmission of sacred texts. During the Babylonian exile, for example, many of the sacred texts were compiled and organized, since the people of Israel were far from their homeland. This period of exile, which lasted about 70 years, was crucial for the formation of what we know today as the Old Testament. Texts such as the books of Daniel and Ezekiel reflect this period of suffering, but also of hope and spiritual renewal. The New Testament and the Christian era. With the arrival of Jesus Christ, in the 1st century, new texts began to be produced. The New Testament is composed of 27 books, including the Gospels, the letters of Paul and other apostles. The Gospels, written by Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, narrate the life and teachings of Jesus. Each evangelist brings a unique perspective, reflecting the different Christian communities to which the texts were initially addressed. The letters or epistles of Paul are another essential component of the New Testament. They were written to the first Christian communities, offering theological teachings, advice, and exhortations for faith. During the first centuries of Christianity, the Bible was in constant formation. Different texts were considered sacred by different communities, but the canonization of the Bible, that is, the process of selecting the books considered officially inspired, would only happen later in theological councils and debates. The transmission and translation of the Bible. During the Middle Ages, the Bible was copied by hand by monks and scholars. The invention of the printing press in the 15th century revolutionized the distribution of the scriptures, making them more accessible to the public. One of the most important translations was the Vulgate, produced by Saint Jerome in the 4th century, which translated the scriptures from Hebrew and Greek into Latin. This version would be the basis for the readings of the Catholic Church for many centuries. The printing of the Bible by Johannes Gutenberg in 1455 was a milestone in history. For the first time, the scriptures were available in mass circulation to a wider audience, without having to rely on manual copying. This helped spread Christianity and knowledge of the scriptures throughout the world. The legacy of the Bible. Today, the Bible is available in more than 2,000 languages, and millions of people around the world continue to study its texts. Its impact is immeasurable, not only on religion, but also on art, literature, science, and morality. The Bible, with all its authors and varied texts, continues to be a source of inspiration and reflection for people of different beliefs and traditions. The story of who wrote the Bible is as complex and rich as the texts themselves. It teaches us not only about the origins of Christianity and Judaism, but also about the evolution of human ideas and spirituality. Although the authors are many and their stories diverse, the legacy of the Bible remains alive in our hearts and minds. And so, the Bible continues its journey through time, written by many hands, but always guided by a single purpose: to illuminate the path of faith and truth. If you liked this video and want to continue exploring the Word of God with us, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave your comment. Your participation is very important to us and helps us spread the message of Christ. May God bless your life, and until the next video.